Well, hello, my friend. Welcome back to another episode of the From Chaos to Peace podcast, where I talk about how clutter is so much more than you think, and we put a spiritual twist on clearing that clutter to get organized. Thank you so much for allowing me back into your ears. Well, hello, my friend. Welcome to the podcast. How are you doing? Thank you so much for allowing me back into your ears. Today, I'm getting into the question, how does spiritual organizing differ from traditional organizing methods? And this is a timely topic as Mercury just turned retrograde last Saturday, March 15, for about 3 weeks. And since Mercury is the planet of communication, technology, and transportation, it really can play a bit of havoc with us. But we can also harness this energy to our advantage, and more about that in a minute. So back to the question, how does spiritual organizing differ from traditional organizing or decluttering methods? Well, the answer lies in aligning our efforts, whether they're decluttering efforts or organizing efforts, aligning them with mindfulness, awareness, and with observing and considering the cosmic influences. For example, the moon and its journey through the different signs and energies, or as we talk about it today, considering Mercury being retrograde. So when we work in harmony with these cycles, we can make more meaningful decisions and we can make progress that actually aligns with what we stand for and what we look for in life, right? And spiritual organizing also means paying attention to what works for you. So honoring your natural tendencies and energies, how you tick, how I always say. And this is where the 4 elements, fire, earth, air, and water come in. I have a quiz that you can take to figure out what your dominant element is. And then understanding your elemental personality type can help you create systems and habits that then feel natural to you. And because they are natural, they're more sustainable. And this way, you're not forcing yourself into a method or into a box that actually doesn't align with you, and you're fighting against your own innate traits, and everything becomes so much harder than it has to be. Instead of just tidying a little bit, and I really cringe because I don't like that word, tidying. But instead of just tidying a little bit, when we do spiritual decluttering or organizing, when we're trying to be mindful and full of awareness and more intentional and purposeful, we take a deeper approach to the whole journey going from chaos to peace. And remember, my acronym for chaos is clutter, holding all opportunities stagnant. And that is a really hard place to be at. And if we move towards peace, which is proactive, easeful, aligned, committed experience, everything becomes a bit easier. So, okay, now let's explore how Mercury retrograde can actually help and assist us in tackling this chaos. So Mercury, as I said, just turned retrograde last Saturday, March 15, and this energy will be with us for about 3 weeks. So a lot of people, they start panicking when they hear Mercury turned retrograde because it is known for causing communication mishaps, travel delays, and also a lot of tech issues. But when we shift our perspective a little bit, and if we slow down and actually go with the energy of Mercury retrograde, then we can see that this is not a time for frustration, but a time of opportunity. Let's first see what frustrations Mercury retrograde could have for us in the next 3 weeks, right? Since Mercury rules communication, technology, contracts, and transportation, we often experience, first and foremost, communication challenges. So misunderstandings, unclear messaging, and we often also forget details. So we want to be aware of that. And before we blow up and get angry or frustrated with somebody, we may want to take a breath and ask for clarification. And also really talk with each other and say, okay, this is what I'm hearing. Is this what you're saying? Because again, misunderstandings are really common during Mercury retrograde. And this is also one of the reasons why we should be careful with committing to long-term things, committing to important things, signing contracts that have a long-term effect. Try to postpone, or dare I say it, procrastinate those till after Mercury turns direct again, because it really you could sign something that you are not really aware of all the details, what you're signing, and then later on realize that this was a mistake. So maybe hold off. What goes with these communication challenges, basically hand in hand, is that mental fog that we may have. We may be more forgetful. We may have more scattered thoughts. And it just in general, it's kind of like a brain fog and a hard time to make decisions. So again, this is also why we don't want to sign any important contracts, and we might not want to commit to anything long-term that we're not really 100% sure and aware what the consequences are. Okay, and so then also hand in hand with that goes all the delays and the mix-ups. So you may have appointments with somebody and they may not happen because one of you or the other party doesn't have it correctly in their calendar, or they forget, or there's missed appointments because of travel delays, which I talked about earlier too, is like there might be hiccups in travel, like if you're flying, expect the flight to not be on time. If you're driving, expect maybe lots of traffic, lineups, construction sites, other events that hold you up or that don't let you travel without any issues, right? So we want to factor that in. Take extra time when you travel somewhere. Be mindful. Don't get frustrated, right? And then lastly, I want to talk about the tech hiccups that we can have, especially now in today's world where so many of us are working online, having an online business, or at least working a lot with computer, with technology, with the internet. It is a time where tech hiccups can happen a lot. That could mean just in your own business or in your own hardware or software, but it could also be on a global level, like that whole software packages or websites are down, that the internet does funny things and doesn't work or is slow. So tech hiccups is there certainly something we have to be prepared for, and that's why I always recommend that we all do a backup of our data that isn't backed up anywhere else. You also want to maybe have a backup in case the cloud has some tech issues, and you need your data or your files to work with. So yeah, make it a backup today. Right after you finish listening to this podcast, go and make a backup because you don't want to lose your data, right? So all of this said, this is not to freak you out again. This is just to make you aware and help you being prepared for what might be coming up in the next 3 weeks. And for example, I'm already prepared. I often have issues with my website. So if I want to update or put up the show notes for this podcast, for example, my WordPress website just doesn't want to play nice. And then my show notes look funny or are incomplete or are old or whatever. And no matter what I do and how frustrated I get with it, it's not getting better. So rather than resisting, we can learn to lean into it, and we actually can start preparing for it. And even more so, we can use and harness this energy for decluttering, because it's actually really good for decluttering. So here are 3 practical ways to harness the energy of Mercury retrograde to declutter. So first and foremost, these 3 weeks, Mercury retrograde, are ideal for finishing unfinished stuff. So whatever you have laying around unfinished that you're trying to finish for the longest time, use these 3 weeks to finish it. Whether it's home repairs, whether it's a half-read book, whether it's past business ideas, anything that is incomplete and waits to be completed. This is really, it's like clean up all these unfinished projects, unfinished ideas too, or make a decision whether you really want to finish them or not. Like, you can decide and say, okay, this was an idea, but I'm not excited about it anymore. So rather than keeping it on the, one day I want to finish this list, declutter it from that list or finish it. So that is the energy that Mercury in retrograde helps us with, right? So making this progress in all the unfinished and broken areas of our life. Broken also, for example, if you're in your household, you have a faucet that leaks and drips, drip, 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 drives you cuckoo, go fix it. If you have light bulbs that are burned out and they're waiting for being replaced with fresh light bulbs, do that. So stuff like this, it can be very simple or it can be a little bit more elaborate, but use these 3 weeks for that. In the physical space, maybe you don't want to make big decluttering decisions because, like I said, your brain may be a bit foggy. You might have a hard time making decisions, but you can always take a love tour. Listen to my episodes about love tours and notice what feels off, make a list of what is broken and fix that. Make it all a little bit more cozier and focus on the positive and have a list ready of what you want to start after Mercury goes direct. And again, with the digital clutter, I said that already, you want to do a backup. Maybe if you have extra time, you want to let go of some of the files, maybe start it. Google Docs, unfinished Google Sheets, whatever you have in your one day I finish this pile, that might be a good moment now to tackle those. And now, I often talk about the 4 elements and how we're all a little bit different and how we act different. And so it's the same here during Mercury retrograde. Not everybody is drawn to the same projects or frustrated with the same things, right? So now during Mercury retrograde, us fire types, we are usually very action-oriented and impulsive. So we may feel quite frustrated and because it feels like there's a break here, like something is stopping us and our usually fast pace gets really slowed down. And so instead of getting all frustrated, which I'm really working on for the next 3 weeks, instead of trying to fight this energy and push ahead, again, let's just finish what we started, especially fire types. We have so many started projects. It's really now the time to declutter that space and wrapping up some half-finished stuff and for completion, not for starting new things. Even though us fire types, we always want to start new things, but not in these 3 weeks, okay? So then the earth type, you thrive in general for stability and being grounded, and you don't like disruptions, right? But Mercury retrograde will really play a little bit the bad guy for you in the next 3 weeks. So in order to keep your peace and calm, you may want to just focus on whatever you have under control. Also finishing started things, if you have them around, and just trying to get calm in your environment. so that you feel that groundedness that you strive for, even during this a little bit more frustrating time while Mercury is retrograde. And you can also help others be more organized, help them remember things. You're good at that, so help them, which reduces your frustration, right? And then so for air people, your mind is a whirlwind usually already, but during Mercury retrograde, it can become even more scattered than it usually is. And please be mindful, like I said, there is also a component of brain fog that can happen. And then if you're so used to thinking fast, thinking on your feet, doing things quickly, talking quickly, not paying attention to the details, so this could really be more intense during Mercury retrograde. So you want to try to slow down a bit and try to not pester your brain with even more stuff than you do already. Rather try to declutter some of the stuff. Also let go of some crazy ideas that you have, which is just not the time right now to start or to do, right? Also, like all the other types I said, focus more on finishing things, which is for the air type sometimes really hard too. But it's the right energy. You get the cosmic tailwind, so to speak, to do that. So do that. And lastly, the water types. So because Mercury retrograde often forces us to slow down, it also forces us to look at things a bit more. And so we may become more sentimental as a water type, right? Even more sentimental than we are already. So instead of trying to force yourself to make decisions around very emotional items, even though the time is really good to declutter, it might not be the right time to declutter items you're emotionally attached to because of the brain fog and because it's harder to make decisions, and then you may beat yourself up for not being able to do it. So just try to create more space for you to explore how you could let go of certain emotional attachments around these things. By, for example, journaling, which helps often clearing our emotional clutter out of it, right? So by writing about why you're so attached to it or why you are so nostalgic, right? Which I have a nostalgic streak to me. That's why I'm talking about this. So sometimes it really helps to write down what's really holding you back. Okay, so before I talk forever about Mercury retrograde, let's summarize real quick. So spiritual organizing differs from traditional organizing methods by our aim to align our efforts with mindfulness, with awareness, and by harnessing the cosmic influences like the moon or Mercury, as I talked about in this episode. So Mercury retrograde is known for causing brain fogs, communication mishaps, travel delays, and tech issues. And so the best advice is to not sign anything very important, to factor in extra time when you travel, to double check all appointments and make sure you don't have communication breakdown or confusion, and by making a backup of your data so you're not losing any important informations. And so rather than resisting this energy, which will slow everything down, like tech issues slow us down, travel issues slow us down, right? Instead of resisting and getting frustrated, we can learn to lean into it and use it actually to our advantage, which means we go more into ourselves and really review our goals and finish up old stuff and getting prepared for when Mercury goes direct again, that we can take action from a more organized and decluttered space. So final thoughts. And I really want to highlight that Mercury retrograde isn't here to mess with us. It's here to help us clean up, to get clear on what we're actually spending our time on and whether it's actually worth it to spend our time on it. And when we embrace this energy, we can set ourselves up for a smoother flow and an easier experience for when Mercury goes direct again. I hope this has been insightful and helpful. And if you feel called, you email me or leave a comment under one of my social media posts and let me know what you are going to finish in these 3 weeks of Mercury retrograde. I would love to hear from you. Okay, that's it for today. Thanks so much for listening all the way to the end and for supporting the podcast. Follow so you never miss a new episode, and talk to you next time. Thanks. Bye for now.